warm welcome from me. It is lovely, as I say, to see you this morning. Thank you for joining us for our third Thinking Forward webinar during the summer term. I'm really hoping that you're finding these useful, whether you're able to join us live or catching up on recordings. I think I know most people here, but if you don't know me, I'm Helen Martin, one of the directors of the Gateway Alliance. As I say, it's lovely to see you. I really hope that you've been able to have a bit of a rest and enjoy of the sunshine over the weekend. You absolutely deserve it. I know it's very, very busy for you, continuing to be very, very busy at the moment. I'm not going to take up too much time this morning. You should know, I'm sure, from being on these sessions, how Zoom works. Please do feel free to use the chat if you've got questions or comments as we go through. At the end, if you want to stay on for a few minutes at the end to speak to Sonia and sort of ask any questions or comments, that's absolutely fine as well. So I'll hand over to Sonia. I'm really delighted that she can be with us this morning. And her session, you know, I'm really hoping that you feel the inspiration and passion that Sonia's got. I was lucky enough to go and visit Sonia's school it was before the pandemic, so it must be over a year ago now. And it's an amazing place to be, if ever you get the opportunity to. Sonia, her deputy Tracy, and the staff within the school are so, you know, enthused and motivated to support the children to succeed, regardless of their prior knowledge and where they come from and how they're you know, what background they've got. So I'm delighted that she's going to be able to share some thinking in terms of how she develops a curriculum and some of the thinking around that. So thank you, Sonia, for joining us today. Really looking forward to the session this morning. I'll hand over to you without further ado and look forward to hearing what you've got to say. Thanks then.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you so much for inviting me along. Hi, head teachers. I know how busy you are. So it's lovely. Thank you for making time and taking time out to listen. I'm going to share my screen with you straight away. Brilliant. So I'm going to just be sharing a little bit about our curriculum. Some of the reasons why we've adopted some of the things that we have, what matters to us, why they matter, and how our context, the kind of community that we serve at St Matthew's is really, really influential on the things that we think about on a daily basis in terms of leading our school. So a little bit about me before I start. I am the head teacher and the director of St Matthew's Teaching and Research School. So we're kind of holding on to our teaching school title until it disappears into the ether at the end of the year, taken over by the teaching school hubs, which is really exciting. And we're a one-form entry church school, and I've been here for about, gosh, it doesn't feel like this long, but I've been here for about 10 years now, just under 10 years. Half of that as a deputy, in fact, more than half as a deputy, and a kind of relevantly recent head teacher, but certainly working with a head that we very much developed a lot of the practices at St Matthew's together. And I think that was the strength of our partnership. So we became a research school literally before, just the kind of couple of months before lockdown. And the reason we applied to become a research school is that we were very much engaged in what is it that will make the difference for our children? What is it? We did a lot of feeling around in the dark, going to other schools, looking at what they did, trying to bring it to St Matthew's, but it didn't quite work. So we went down the road about 4 or 5 years ago of really looking at reading ourselves, looking at some of those educational books and reading through them and picking out some of the things linked to the research, but certainly really tuning ourselves into the EEF, the Education Endowment Foundation toolkit, and kind of using that as a guide for us when we were deciding what things to adapt and adopt within our school. So when we applied to become a research school, we were very confident that we were able to show a lot of the practices around the guidance document. So it's been a very exciting journey in terms of our research school. We are also an accredited Talk for Writing training centre. Before I became a head, I was an English consultant for Birmingham Local Authority. I worked for Birmingham for about 5 years. And it was just at the time when Pi Corbett was training English consultants to deliver Talk for Writing across the country. So when I saw Pi deliver, I was very, very engaged with what he was saying. It made sense. So as soon as I got back into school, I thought, that's what we're going to move forward. So after a couple of years of moving it forward, we decided to call Pi and say, Pi, we think we can join your select band of Talk for Writing training centres. So we came and did a 2-day inspection. And I have to say it was an inspection because he looked at everything. And if you know Pi, is very thorough. And at the end of it, he gave us the thumbs up and he said, yes, you're fine. You can move it forward. So we are very proud of our Talk for Writing status, and we support a lot of schools with moving Talk for Writing forward. We've moved online with it at the moment, but still working with schools and moving that forward. My other passion, the thing I'm absolutely passionate about, is children's literature, and really supporting schools to understand the pedagogy, the research, the evidence base behind supporting children to read for pleasure with agency. So not just reading for pleasure when we tell them to, but actually choosing to read for pleasure, and really supporting schools to understand the research base that talks about children who read for pleasure do well across the curriculum. Now, to me, that's a no-brainer. If I'm hearing some research, the best bet to tell me that children who love reading have got agency with their reading, want to read when I don't tell them to, those are the children that are going to do well in my school, then it was a no-brainer to me that I had to move that forward. I was very, very, very lucky to have support from Teresa Kremin. I was part of the original Open University research called Teachers as Readers, and when I was an English consultant, and heard lots of the brilliant messages and supported some schools in moving reading for pleasure forward and saw the results of that. So I currently judge for OU and for Empathy Lab. I'm very much engaged with anything to do with Empathy Lab and empathy work. So lots and lots of reading for pleasure, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail. So what matters to us? These are the things that I've picked out that matter to St Matthew's. I've already talked about reading, but not just the teaching of reading. We're very much about systematic teaching of reading, phonics, into teaching of comprehension, into supporting that on the same level as teaching children how to read for pleasure and supporting children to read for pleasure. So reading for pleasure and progress, I call it, that is one of our linchpins at St Matthew's, and we spend a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of reading around getting it right. What is it that works supporting children to read for progress, teaching them how to read, teaching them their phonics, but also moving that into then, how do we make sure that they comprehend, that they're fluent, and that they've got that prosody. So we make sure that we spend a lot of time working through that. We also look at children's funds of knowledge, and equity and diversity are really, really important for me as a head teacher, as a Black woman, but also as a Black head teacher. Really, really important that the children in my school are able to see themselves in my curriculum. Really, really important. And I wouldn't just say it's important for me because I'm the head of a school that has a big diverse population, but I would say it should be important for everybody because we live in a diverse world. So children need to see others within their curriculum and know that their curriculum is a window into other people's lives, a mirror into their own lives, and a sliding door so that they can take a little peek into things that happen outside of their kind of sphere. So for us, that's been really important. So alongside that, we're also very much a knowledge-rich school. I would say that we're in the kind of traditional camp in terms of teaching and learning, ensuring that the cognitive understanding and children memorizing and remembering their learning so that they can apply that across the curriculum is important for us. So alongside the cultural capital that they bring in themselves, we want to also extend and expand that cultural capital in very much a powerful way. RSC, vocabulary, storytelling, important. Evidence-informed PD. So again, what is it that works? And we're making sure that we're training our staff on the things that work rather than a scattergun approach, which we were very much about in the past. to our detriment, and it didn't really support us. We had a vision, but couldn't quite get to that vision because we hadn't thought through the kind of methods that we wanted. So very important to us. And then alongside that, what I'm absolutely adamant about is whatever we do, whatever we bring into school, I've got to take something away, because what I don't want to do is increase staff workload. And we've been through our ups and downs with workload, but I think we've kind of found a little sweet spot at the moment. And we're very much, as I said, focused on, if we're bringing in, what is it that we need to get rid of? What is it that doesn't work now? How can we pare things back? What actually has impact on teaching and learning? What's going to make the difference? And if it doesn't make the difference, if the teachers are telling me that it doesn't make the difference, if I'm seeing that it doesn't make a difference, my SLT are telling me it doesn't make the difference, then we're ruthless, get rid. That's what we're about. So it's really, really important that we tune ourselves into that as well. So those are the things that matter, and why they matter is because of my context. This is my context. I'll let you have a little read. So for us, high pupil premium, I'm calling them issues. I'm going to call them issues, but I'm going to say something about that in a minute. High EAL, but I wouldn't even say it's EAL, because we're certainly not newly arrived, but from families from diverse places, from diverse places. But what we do, and I think probably our biggest issue is housing. So we have quite a lot of mobile community. We have a mobile community, but we're kind of changing. People are kind of establishing themselves in Nechells. Nechells is the fifth most deprived area in Britain, the third in Birmingham. So an area of high deprivation. But my big mantra is that it's not a deficit. I don't want my children to be disadvantaged because they are born in Nechells. In fact, I want them to have even more. So that's one of the things we strive for, is how can we ensure that what they bring, we celebrate what they bring into school, and I really do celebrate what they bring into school, but how do I enhance that? How do I support that? So that it actually becomes a two-way reciprocal process of sharing, developing, and ensuring that our children get the very best. Because as I said, what I don't want is for them to feel that it's just because they're from Nechells, they don't deserve the best. Well, that's what we're going to look for. We're going to find out what works and do it to the best of our ability. So all of these things that we've got don't mean anything to anybody else. But certainly they mean for us as a school that we have worked to our best of our ability to ensure that our children get the very best. We've got really simple protocols at St Matthew's, really simple protocols that we kind of live by every day. We're a church school, so we kind of live by our school mottos. The children, if I ask the children, Miss, what is not impossible? And they say nothing is impossible, because they know that this is what we strive for at St Matthew's. You can achieve everything. You can achieve everything. We keep our rules very simple. Got 2 school rules, nothing complicated, nothing complex. Be kind and caring, always do your best. And I always say to the children, sometimes do your best. No, always do your best. And our children, they know from every teacher in our school that this is what we're striving for. We're striving for our children to achieve beyond what they think is possible, to achieve beyond what their parents think is possible. So our vision is about celebrating their heritage, it's about excellence, and it's about them being able to meet the challenges. And I always say to the teachers that on our leg of the journey, our children are going to leave St Matthew's knowing that we've done the very, very best for them. And that's what we strive for. We use our values, and our values are courage, attainment, pride, CAP. We teach Latin at St Matthew's, so we call it Gere Pilium Cum Dignate. And I apologise if you're a Latin specialist. I'm not sure I said that right, but that's our kind of motto: wear your cap with dignity. And I hold myself accountable for that, to be courageous as a head. My focus is on academic attainment for my children. And I always say to the children, we've got to be proud of ourselves, proud of each other, proud of our school and proud of our community. So we take pride in whatever we do. And I think these messages, these values that we kind of live by have driven us forward over the years. They've been something we always go back to. We mention every day to the children. They mention back to us. And it's a thing that has brought us together and really makes that message about high attainment and achievement and aspiration for our children really potent and really strong. So what are some of the things that we do? Well, all of our children have the opportunity to be leaders. So we have worship warriors, young leaders, peer tutors, house captains. We have a house system where our children are, every child is in a house. And they support me with decision making, and all the way through lockdown, they were there telling me what things were working and what things were not working. So a really useful tool for me. We also do a brilliant club. We work with Teach First to do a brilliant club where our children in year 5 and 6 work with a PhD student to write a dissertation about a STEM subject. So that student comes into school and they're back in school now, working with our children over the summer. And then the children actually graduate from a university. And in 2019, just before lockdown, our children graduated from Oxford, which is just great for them to see, be aspirational and see what they can achieve. So we're very much into that. We spend our pupil premium money on tutoring. If you know Birmingham, you know that the grammar schools are very, very important. And unfortunately, if you've got money, you can pay for tutors. And half of the people who pay for tutors are also in the independent schools as well. So it's a great system if you've got money. But so what we've decided is that actually we've got some very, very academic children at St Matthew's every year. So we actually start tutoring from year 5, from year 2, verbal and non-verbal reasoning. We test our children in year 2, just the ones that we think can make it. And then they've got a couple of years to really embed. Our tutor comes in twice a week, and then we have a good selection of children going off to grammar schools at the end of the academic when they finish year 6. So it's a really positive thing for parents. We very subsidised rate. We also do Lambda here, so opportunities for the children to learn prose, poetry, and take exams in that. We have a Young People's Parliament. We're part of Young People's Parliament. Our year 6 children have a very great experience of being tour guides around Stratford. So they learn all about Shakespeare. They get a masterclass around all the key areas in Stratford, and they actually physically go through 2019 before lockdown. For the past couple of years, they physically go to Stratford, and they actually are tour guides on all the major places that Shakespeare went to. And we've had such great feedback from real tourists who've told us that our children are so knowledgeable about Shakespeare. So it's a really great experience, and we invite our year 5s along so that they can see what the experience is going to be for them, and have a great day out in Stratford. All of our children play a musical instrument in Key Stage 2. We pay for that, and they take music exams. As I said, we teach Latin. We've got an artist in residence who works across our school. And our children are also, a group of children from year 4 and 5 are police community officers, young police community officers. So lots of opportunities that we're always looking out for all the time. What can we do? What can we give them? Experiences that they wouldn't necessarily have. So really important for us. And because of these things, we feel like our children are confident. They ask us for more. Can we do this? Can we do that? Because they see that the opportunities are there for them. And that's what we want. We want them to be energetic, positive, confident about both their academic learning and their social learning. I've had the privilege of being part of some training recently called Leverage Leadership, and there's a book out if you'd like to read it. If anybody knows about the work of Doug Lamov and Reading Reconsidered, it's very much linked to all of that, Uncommon Schools. And it really talks about this idea of equity, providing equity for our pupils. What is it that we can do? However, we need to do it to enable our children to succeed academically. And I'm really, really driven by this idea that I don't just want my children to leave school and have had a good learning experience, but I want them to pass exams. I want them to be able to compete with others. So it's really important for me that the academic opportunities are here for our children as well. And I say to the parents that we are very much an academic school. We're very much about results. And I've got no shame in that. We're about well-being as well, but academic results are really, really key for our children, particularly children from disadvantaged areas where already the things are stacked up against them. So 2 great books that I'm recommending to you: Culturally Responsive Teaching, Zaretta Hammond, a really strong book talking about equity alongside leverage leadership. And they talk about equity, leverage leadership, Zeta Hammond talks about equity being defined as ensuring high quality outcomes for children in educational systems, where usually there's predictability about what those outcomes would usually be. How can we make sure that we break that cycle? And again, that really tunes in with our research school. The research school is about breaking the link between poverty and disadvantage, and breaking that link between poverty and education. So it really fits in with that. That's what equity is about, whatever it takes. And then the culture, what are the values, what are the beliefs, what are the expectations within St. Matthew's that means that we're all focused on that powerful goal. And I'm not saying it's easy. Some staff don't buy into it, but one of the things that we're very, very clear about is that we're not going to give up on that mission. So SLT's role is to persuade staff about the why. Why does it matter? Why is it important that we do the very best for children from one of the most disadvantaged areas in Britain? And Zaretta Hammond says our students belong in academic spaces, and we need to create those environments that welcome them and where they intellectually flourish. And that's what we're about, creating those spaces in primary school where our children intellectually flourish. So on the academic side, on the social side, on the cultural side, really, really important. Because what I want my children to have is choices. If they want to stay in Neachels, that's fine. I've got no problem with them staying in Neachels. But if they want to get out of Neachels, if they want to see that there's a big world out there, if they want to go to university, if they want to be the first person in their family to go to university, then that is what I'm about. It's being given that choice. And what I don't want to do is block that choice because we didn't do the very best that we could do for them as part of our leg of the journey in primary schools. So that's our kind of vision. And the EEF, this is their diagram. And what I talk about is that to do this type of thing, this type of work, we've got to base it in our community. So you know your community, I know what my community needs. So I've got to think about the practical wisdom about my community. What do I understand about my school context? But then on the other side, as I said, I'm very much committed to what is the data telling me? What is the research telling me? And what is the evidence telling me? I haven't got any time to waste on doing things that I know that somebody else has not uncovered is going to work. So it's very much about the best bets. What are the best bets that I can do in my school that will mean that in the middle, that's that sweet spot in the middle, that's where I want to be, the equity and evidence-informed school improvement. That's where I'm trying every day to pull St. Matthew's into that space. So practical wisdom about my school, data and the evidence, and I'm trying to work in the sweet spot. That evidence-informed, equity-informed, evidence-informed school improvement practice. So I'm just going to give you a pause and think moment. What's the purpose of education for you? And how has your school context and your personal values shaped your curriculum thinking so far? How has it shaped it? So I'm going to give you a quick pause and think. Feel free to talk to anybody you're with. Drop anything in the chat. And then we'll move forward. You've kind of heard mine, a bit of a ramble, but hopefully you've got a sense of what we're trying to do at St. Matthew's. Okay, I'm going to move on then. So one of the things I talked about is building on our children's existing capital. Children from deprived areas very much are told, actually, we don't want you to bring any of what you have at home into school. Just leave it at the door with the experts and we'll move you forward from there. And very much that didn't sit right with me. I'm probably that child, that pupil premium child from that family. I come from a family of 10 children, 6 brothers, 4 sisters, one of the most deprived areas in Birmingham. And I know that I had a strong culture and values. I know that my parents, who came from Jamaica, wanted me to do well. They might not have known how to do it. They might not have known how to do it. So they put a lot of trust in education, in the education system. But one of the things they did is to send us to the library. And we read, and I read, voraciously read. And I know that that added to what I was able to bring to the table in school. We're also quite a religious family, so we went to church and I heard people standing on pulpits, preaching words, vocabulary, fantastic. I knew stories, I knew Bible stories, so I brought that to the table. But when I got to school, because I went to a school that was in a disadvantaged area, they kind of said to me, leave that at the door with the experts, we're not interested in that. So we looked at the work of Louis Moll, as part of some work that we were doing in Birmingham. And Louis Moll said, we've got to challenge that deficit idea of our children, that they've got nothing to bring to the table. We've got to challenge that model. And they talk about families and communities having extensive funds of knowledge, lived experiences, rich experiences. But if we don't uncover them, we'll never see what they are. And actually, once we tune into them and parents see, oh, they want to listen to me, they want to find out about me, they're interested in my culture, my heritage, then parents see that it's a reciprocal relationship. Parents see that you're there respected, and hopefully parents will open up a little bit more. And everybody's got something. At St. Matthew's, we celebrate home languages, children go on outings and travels, and a lot of our parents came from Europe, so they know a lot about countries in Europe that I haven't even been to. Their traditions and values, occupations. A lot of our parents came from Somaliland, and we had to have some doctors in Somaliland that came here that couldn't practice, but they know a lot about science and STEM. We've got a lot of children who do educational activities outside of school because their parents are aspirational for them. So we kind of celebrate that. And I always talk about my own storehouse. That's me in the corner. And as I said, those are my influences. The library, very influential for me. Reading aloud is very influential. In my family, we did lots of reading aloud. So for me, that's important. And reading, as I said, Stig of the Dump was the first book I remember being read aloud. And it was a teacher that I didn't particularly like, but when he read aloud to me, I loved him. He was fantastic. And that's kind of resonated with me because I was a reader myself and had finally found the teacher that was a reader as well and was reading aloud to me. So we call that the invisible backpack. What is that in that invisible backpack that your children bring to school? Do you spend time to open it? Are they allowed to open it in your school? Are they allowed to take out the things that are important to them? Are they allowed to talk about that? Do we uncover them and spend time and make time to do it? Again, going back to Zaretta Hammond, she said the most powerful thing we can do is to create a culture of caring that allows ourselves to be seen as human beings, not just teachers. There's evidence that if we open our backpacks, I'm kind of summarizing what she says, then the children will open theirs as well. And then it will build that cooperation and teamwork. Really important. So one of the things I get my teachers to do is to open their backpacks as well. So they talk to the children about themselves. We get a chance because we've built it into the curriculum. So our children are not deficit. We want to find out about their literacy lives. So this is how we've built it into our curriculum. So we have 6 themes across the year. And they kind of headline our curriculum, and then we do everything underneath them. So these are them. Our lives, our families. So we start that off in autumn term where we can find out about our families, their heritage, their culture. Then we move on to our community. So we widen it out to Nechells and Birmingham. So our children know the heritage and the fantasticness of what's happening around them in Nechells and Birmingham. Then we move out to our world and we find out about where our families are from and the other countries in the world, key countries and key continents in the world. Then we have to do our global village. How can we work together to sustain the countries that we live in, this world that we live in? Then we talk about our passions. Who are the passionate people, the diverse passionate people that made a difference in our world? And then we have our future, and we have that as the last one because we can talk about transition, we can talk about jobs, we can talk about roles and role models in the different workplaces. So it kind of fits, the headings fit across our curriculum so that we can uncover what's in our children's backpacks. And as I said, at the beginning of our units of work, our history units, our geography units, our art units, our design and technology units, we find out a little bit more about our children. And there's one of our literacy rivers, our life rivers, where the children can share about their lives and their families. This is about their sharing about their community, sharing about their art, what art they love. And this is what they're passionate about, their passion page. So lots of opportunities within the curriculum for the children to share about themselves and about their families. In our curriculum itself, you can see that we've got a curriculum where Black history and diverse history kind of links across all of those themes. We've picked out particular people, particular ideas, particular concepts, particular headings around migration, around explorers, around empire and conquest and trade. And again, we've kind of linked that in across our curriculum so that our children can widen their background knowledge about the world and about some of the things that have happened in the world. So again, really important. We've got these headers and we've produced some overviews for our teachers so that it gives the teachers the confidence to be able to teach these things, as well as giving them the ideas that they need to feed into their the units of work. We also want to be really clear about geography in our units of work, that we're not perpetuating stereotypes in our curriculum. One of the things that we really make sure that we do is we look at Kenya. This is one picture of Kenya with huts and Kenya with people who live in huts. But we also make, and the children see Kenya as part of a bigger continent, Africa, but they know about Africa based on films that they watch, based on Disney. That always gives them an idea that there's talking animals and that you can walk with these animals who are really friendly in Disney films. But actually, it's not quite like that. It's not quite like that when you go to different countries. But this is Kenya as well. This is Kenya. So we make sure that our children see that it's not just that picture of Kenya, but this is Kenya as well. So that we're making sure that we're not perpetuating any stereotypes about any country. So really, really key for us that we tune into that. And as I said, giving the children opportunities to find out about the contribution of other people in the world, to things that are very much things that we study in British history, so World War II, but who else was involved in World War II? What other countries were involved in World War II? So I just want to flag up a couple of books. If you're interested in moving anything in working, looking at a diverse curriculum, Benny Cara's book is really fantastic. If you're on Twitter, follow Benny Cara on Twitter. She's fantastic. Diversity in Schools. I'm sure everybody's heard about David Olagusa, Black and British, a really lovely book for primary. Some really nice inserts around Black British history. And the other book was a book that I got free from the Royal Mint. They sent it to schools in Birmingham, but some really lovely posters in that book. So I don't know if you can contact the Royal Mint and find out whatever else they've got, but so if they've got any spare copies, but a really fantastic resource that we've really used a lot. And then around our schools, our walls show, they provide opportunities for children to see themselves, people that look like them. And people who have contributed, books that are really important. So we've got all of that. And in Benny Cara's book, it says walls matter. What do your walls tell your children about the world that we live in? What do your walls tell your children about what's important to them and to you in your school? So another pause and think moment. Louis Moll talks about funds of knowledge. How do we ensure that the space for children's existing capital, so what they bring into school, as well as diversity within your curriculum? What are those opportunities? So again, happy for you to post anything. Happy for you to ask me any questions. Okay, so I also said we're very much about a traditional curriculum. We're very much about knowledge-rich curriculum. And when we started on our journey, which was about in 2014, when the new curriculum came out, we said our mission was to actually read through it. What does it actually say? And it talked about the essential knowledge that children need to have to be educated citizens. It said in there about what's the best that's been thought and said. So it already said it that's what it says in the national curriculum. So we were very much about what Tim Oates says, the system that we need coherence in our curriculum, that our pedagogy, our teaching content, the assessment has all got to be aligned. And that's what we've been working on over the years to make sure that our teaching, our pedagogy, our assessment, our content is aligned. Paul Kirshner and Sweller talks about the aim of education is to improve children's long-term memory. And we needed to see in our curriculum that our children were able to show that the learning that we were doing was embedded, and it didn't just disappear into the ether, which we experienced as a school. We thought we'd been doing a good job, but when we asked the children to remember what we taught them, we didn't have anything in place to support that. So we very much looked at Daniel Willingham's book, around what do children not like about school. And he talks about the long-term memory and the short-term memory, and the fact that we've got to open up that long-term memory muscle and get children, because the working memory is limited. It won't remember everything. So when they forget, how do we support children to remember? And that was our mission. What could we do differently in our curriculum to ensure that remembering what they'd learned was built in? So we skilled up our teachers. We wanted them to be experts. We wanted them to work with us to make those meaningful links. And we wanted to build our own subject knowledge and the ideas around subject discipline. And we went to Paul Young's book, where he talks about powerful knowledge. And he says, it doesn't matter what children are bringing in, acknowledge that, but also acknowledge that actually there's things that they can't learn without us. They can't learn some things without us as teachers. And actually, it's our job. Social justice, that's what he talked about. The curriculum that we build has to be good enough to overcome those barriers that a lot of our children face if they're in disadvantaged areas. We've got to be the thing that helps them to succeed in life. So we trialed our curriculum, we looked at it, we invested in what we thought were some of the best people to support us with looking at some of the key resources, and made sure that anything that we chose as a scheme was the best scheme it could be. So we did a lot of work with Hertfordshire, Hearts for Learning around fluency, and they are brilliant. Martin Galway, Penny Slater have been really supportive with us. And we've done lots of training days to support them, to support other schools in Birmingham. We considered Doug Lamar. I was very privileged to go on a training day with him, 2 training days. We decided we were going to do Latin because we wanted to train all staff to deliver MFL, because we didn't just want one of our teachers who was off on maternity leave. So we couldn't carry on with Spanish. So we trained everybody, and now everybody can teach Latin. So we really honed down on what we wanted, and then tuned into the subject associations and got them involved with us in planning out our curriculum. So that we built our subject overviews a couple of years ago. What is it that we want for our children to be? So for geography, we want them to be excited about the planet that they live on. We wanted to stimulate them. We wanted to be clear about our assessment and the meaningful links. What did we want our SEND children to experience? We didn't want them to experience anything different or deficits, but we wanted to be able to make sure that the work that we were doing that was accessible to them. What trips and opportunities did we want? So we built all our overviews. So we've got one for maths, Latin, and across the curriculum, which I'm happy to share with you if you do want them, and then made our planning goals, and these are our goals. Secure our subject knowledge, construct coherent schema and sequence our lessons so that they make sense to the children. What's the disciplinary knowledge, the factual things that we wanted to learn, and what are the substantive things? So the things that were a bit uncertain, we didn't want to make the children think that everything was certain in every subject. There were still conversations within subject communities going on. So again, we wanted to be able to skill up our teachers to understand that. And then what were the opportunities for that? Forgetting, which is fine, Ebbingham's forgetting curve, we're happy with that. But how do we make sure that they remember? So building in that retrieval practice in the subsequent lessons. And that we very much looked at Rose and Shine, and that was very early on. Kind of moved past Rose and Shine now. We've kind of embedded that into our practice and really focusing on ensuring that we're embedding this coherence and this sequencing and opportunities for the children to move forward. The other thing we decided is that actually we can't teach history, geography, art and design technology every week. Our teachers said it was too much, and they felt as if they were not doing those subjects justice. So actually what we do now is we have subject weeks. So the end of every half term, we teach history or geography or art, and we teach it for a week with no other subjects involved in that week. So we teach history twice a year, geography twice a year, art once a year, but we have an artist in residence who does it all the time. And then we have design and technology once a year. So that's our kind of overview. And it means that we can spend an intensive amount of time on that. And our children, they've said to us that they really enjoy it, this kind of intense focus for the week. And if you ever do come to St Matthew's, it'd be good to ask them the question what they like about it, the weeks. And as I said, it's really built our teacher subject knowledge. It's provided an opportunity for us to go in depth in our curriculum. So our curriculum is knowledge rich, and we're very unapologetic about that diverse, knowledge rich curriculum approach. What's your approach, and how would you say that it's evidence? I'm going to give you another pause and think moment. So what's your approach to curriculum development? What's your principles? Is it about memory? Is it about remembering? Is it about coherence? Is it about building your teacher's subject knowledge? What are the key things that you've pulled out? Just a pause and think moment, and then I'll move on. So I'm going to do a very quick, I'm literally going to do a 5-minute walkthrough of some of the key principles for history. I lead history. Unfortunately, when you're in a one-form entry school, you've got to be hands-on. So alongside everything else, I have to lead history. So what I've done is I've pulled out my vision for history, and I kind of put this up front for the teachers when I'm doing the training. This is what I want you to think about history. And this is what I want our children to feel about history. And what I'm trying to tell them is there's beauty in history, there's beauty in every subject, and I want you to when you're teaching it, I want you to get that across to our pupils. So these are my kind of key principles around history, but we're learning it not because the national curriculum tells us to learn it, because it's just a great subject, and actually there's an intrinsic value in knowing where we come from. The other thing, I'm just going to pull out one more thing, is that there's different interpretations of history. And there's a range of evidence around that, and it's not secure. There's lots of people think different things about history at different times and for different reasons. So we never want to present history as being totally factual. There's lots of interpretations, and it goes beyond even the sources that we look at. It goes into that person's personality, where they were, what their thinking was, and all of that is really important for us to understand as well. We went into the national curriculum, as I said, and lots of the discussions that Christine Council talks about, that a history teacher needs to be very aware that there is this disciplinary and there is this substantive. And what we really worked on was pulling out the concepts. So on our overview, you can see that when we teach history the first time in red, the concepts are there. And then you can see when we teach it again, we pick up on those concepts that they were taught previously, so the children know that we're not just teaching the Great Fire of London, or we're not just teaching the Stone Age, but we're teaching about chronology, we're teaching significance, we're teaching causation. So it's those concepts that we want them to understand and be able to apply across all those units. So this is how I explained it to the teachers. We're not just teaching the Romans, but we're teaching about invasion, resistance, empire, trade, change and continuity. So again, it's not been an overnight change. This is what we've been working on. We're moving away from these tasks, building things in history for the sake of it. We're moving more to that idea that children, there's some knowledge that they need to capture. So I've given my subject leaders time to produce materials for my children, so for the teachers. So they've kind of done the heavy lifting. The teachers have done the subject leaders have done the heavy lifting, but they can only do that if they're being given time. So we've actually had supply teachers in teaching the children, so that our teachers had the time to produce the documents that our children need. So for instance, when our teachers are the teacher in year 3 is teaching about the Stone Age, they have this overview, and it tells them what the core knowledge is, what the hinterland knowledge is, what the vocabulary is, and what the objectives are. So the teacher has this as a basis for the subject knowledge. And that work was done, and we had to invest heavily in that, but it's been worth it. We've kind of got to a place now where we've got lots of these things done, but it takes time. And I would say that if you're going to do these things, you've got to give your teachers time. This is one we've done for geography, progression map, across all of those key areas in geography. And we've done a geography vocabulary chart, progression chart. And then we have our overarching questions. So it's really important that we kind of build all of that. What we've tried to also do is build in some books that support all of our geography and history units. And we're building that now for DT, building it for art and design. So we've got, because reading is really important for us, so we're trying to build in opportunities to read within that subject. So again, really important. And then opportunities for the children to storytell, to tell stories, to learn the stories of those historical, geographical ideas as part of a narrative around that subject area, and then reproduce those themselves in different forms. So this is the Persian War, and the children have mapped that out. And it links with our talk for writing as well, links in with our talk for writing. So mapping out stories. Daniel Willingham says it's a great way of children remembering things, is storytelling. So we use that a lot, we use stories a lot. So you can see even Macbeth, we've kind of mapped it out first. And again, a great way of the children being able to remember. And you can see in RE, we map out the Bible stories as well. And again, this idea that stories, mapping, this idea of dual coding is really, really a good way for the brain to remember things. So we've kind of trained our teachers to be able to do that, and our children to be able to have a go too. Really important. And if you want to find out a little bit more about how we do that, 2 of my teachers, my deputy Tracy and my assistant head Daniel, have got some case studies in Pi Corbett's Transforming Learning Across the Curriculum. Daniel's talking about RE, Tracy's talking about maths, and how we use mapping out so that children can remember more within those subjects. We do have knowledge organisers, but again, I always give a little caveat with knowledge organisers. They're not our curriculum. They're really just some big facts that we want our children to remember, and we retrieve these facts a lot. We give them at the beginning of the half term, ready for when we do the week, and just before the end of the half term. So over the weeks, we're continuously applying that knowledge into different subject areas. We do a guided reading session, a shared reading session around that before we apply it into the week. But it's certainly not the curriculum. So just a little bit of caveat around that. And it's not a one-off. We put them into a folder so that our teachers can go back to them. Even if we're doing another geography, we'll go back to our history ones. Even if we're doing art, we'll go back to our DT ones. So we're constantly using them all the time. So they don't just become wallpaper. It's very easy to do. Just a little bit of a case study for us then, very quickly. I've got about 9 minutes. Quick case study for RE. And again, as a church school, we've spent a lot of time just mapping out our RE curriculum. And again, you can see across the top our themes, our lives, our families, our community. But we've also linked places to our RE topics. We've linked people to our RE topics, people from the Bible, as well as very much making sure that we've got a strong Christian unit, but also looking at worldviews, religious worldviews. And one of the things that we've built within our curriculum is this the really importance of challenging texts. So using challenging texts as much as possible across the curriculum. And there's no more challenging text than the Bible. So we use the Bible a lot in our shared reading sessions outside of RE, but also as part of RE. And looking at the etymology of words, and really looking at the origin of words and linking that to Latin. So here, there's one of our examples, commandment. So we do the definition, the characteristics, the example, and the non-example. If you've heard of the Freya model, we've kind of built that into what we do. And these are some of the examples of the children using that model. This is year 5, some of the children using that for one of the words, triumphal. You can see different examples. And then we use find it, visualize it, use it, explore it. So lots of opportunities to really unpick that tier 2 and tier 3 vocabulary. And breaking it down, our teachers will look at the Latin, linking very much in with our teaching of Latin. So I don't think I've done an assembly in the last 3 years without using Latin within that assembly all the time. What's the root of the word? What's the etymology of the word? So this idea that trans and transfigure is shape and form. So that these quite challenging words in RE, our children are confident about using them because of the fact that we're breaking it down and then being able to expand it out. So transport, transaction, transatlantic. So it's not just a static word list. So again, you'll see these in our books and in our classrooms. What's the word? What's the etymology? And then what's the image of that word? And then the example. So again, really using the Bible to support us. And you'll see that from year 1 all the way up to year 6. It's not just in year 6 that we do this type of work and this type of reading. So lots of different ways of using vocabulary and embedding that within our curriculum. And this is just an example of what we do. So structured approach, teaching, breaking it down line by line, and really getting the children to unpick, the teachers to unpick each line. What does it mean? What do those pronouns mean as well? That's often what trips children up in reading. And the Bible is a great way of working on that pronoun, those pronouns in RE as well. And then we can use those comprehension strategies of summarizing, bringing that in as well. So lots of opportunities to read. And then because we love reading, I'm going to end with just a little bit of a look at our cross-curricular reading work and also how we celebrate reading as part of our curriculum. So outside of our teachers' classrooms, you will see their own libraries. And we give teachers a budget to spend on buying some books for themselves so that they can show the children that they're readers. There's no point us talking about reading if we're not being reading role models ourselves. So we talk about teachers as readers, readers as teachers. So really important. This is outside of my assistant head's classroom. So as the children walk in, they can see the books that he loves. And then we use high quality literature in our subject areas. So this is a lovely book for RE. Mouse, Bird, Snake, Wolf, beautiful book about creation. Of course, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, which talks about that sacrificial death. And just some lovely, lovely, lovely books that we kind of pick out and see how we can use them across our curriculum. And you can see some of the work that our year 6 children have been doing around some of those texts. I'm going to skip forward a little bit. And just to show some of the outcomes of some of the work. We do a gallery at the end of our art week. We do a gallery. We set up the hall and we usually have our parents come in and they can put little dots on their children's work. And we celebrate as part of our gallery. Every child has a piece that they can take home And we have an artist in as I said, we have our artist in residence, and we also have our art journals as well. So what we try to do is to make the children see that there's the experiences that we're giving them, the learning that we're giving them, the outcomes are there for them to see and for the parents to see as well, and to celebrate the work that their children do. So it's a really exciting day when we set up the library, the gallery. The other thing is we bring in outside agencies to come and help us as well. Year 6 are currently working with an organisation called F2D, and I think they work across the country. And what they do is, because we're leading up to our DT week, is they do enterprise for young children. So they teach them how to do branding, how to source material, how they produce the actual goods, and then they have those goods sent back. So they take them through the whole design process. So our year 6 children are producing their own levers, hoodies, and they're doing it from brand design to brand to source materials, to sending it off, to locating where it's produced in the world, and then they will get their hoodies back at the end of this half term. And so it's a really exciting project for them, and it brings the kind of DT curriculum to life. So again, we're kind of looking out for how can we make it real for the children? How can we make that learning real? What do those models of excellence look like in real life? And again, the other book I'm going to flag up is Ron Berger's Ethic of Excellence, and the work that he does around making sure that children see that when we talk about what excellence looks like, we've got to show them as well. And we've got to show them that they too, if they plot out something really well, they can produce excellent work, and showcase that. So as I said, some of the work that our children have produced with our artist in residence, our year 2s, we're very conscious that our children's drawing skills were not strong. So we've really focused on that. And then some of their being able to draw themselves has been a big thing that we've really focused on as well. So the final kind of pause and think, how do you embrace the truths and beauty of each subject area? How do you do that? How do you do that? And get your teachers to be passionate about the subjects that they study. I kind of want to finish off with this idea that, I won't go into reading for pleasure. I want to just finish off with this idea that change is messy. It's very, very messy. And I'm hoping that when I'm talking to you, what I've talked to you about for the past hour, I'm not, hope it doesn't come across as what we've done has been easy, and we're kind of very organized in the way that we do it. It hasn't been like that. But what we've been very clear about, what we've been very conscious of, is that everything we've done, as I said, has been research driven, very research driven. What is it? What are the best bets? What are the things that those who have researched have said will work? We've gone back to the EF guidance documents. We've gone back to the books that have told us about subject areas, told us about the things that subject leads need to understand, told us about what makes the difference to children, to their social emotional well-being, to how we can bring out the best in them in terms of metacognition. So we've worked on all of those areas. And what we're always trying to be very conscious of is that there comes a time when we get to a point where some of the things that we've worked on just don't work anymore. And we've been there where we spent money on things that have not worked. Sorry, that have worked for a time, but have come to the end, and we've had to move on from it. And it's not been easy, because, you know, when you invest money in something, you kind of feel like you've got to see it through. But actually, if it's not making an impact on the children's learning, if it's not making a difference in attainment and outcomes, academic outcomes, it doesn't provide any rigor, then we've got to be brave and say, actually, we need to move on from that. And it's all about the implementation. That's the key thing. And just to flag up before I got the Education Endowment Foundation, have got a great guidance document around implementation. And that document really supports teachers in understanding what do we need to explore before we take on new ideas? What do we need to make sure we're clear about? Are we ready for the change? Are our staff ready for change? I've come to the conclusion that it's no point me being ambitious and forcing things through when my staff don't get it. So I've got to actually spend the time making sure that my teachers get it first, so that they will buy into the why. So they buy into the why, and they want to make the difference with me, alongside me. And that's really what's worked for us. So thank you for listening. I have got a few more slides, and if Helen, I'm happy to send them through. If people want to have a look at the slides, very much about reading for pleasure, and a little bit about implementation at the end. And if you want to read anything more about St Matthew's, we've got a case study in Alex Quigley's book about reading. And I've also got a section in Claire Seeley's curriculum, the research ed book curriculum. There's a little bit of a case study about St Matthew's curriculum in there as well. So thank you very much for listening, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you so much. You've crammed so much into that hour. And I think it was just, colleagues really appreciate having some time to sort of hear from existing head teachers, just thinking about what their views are and what their influences are. And it was really clear in terms of what your drivers are and the influences that you've had on developing your curriculum within school. So colleagues, I really hope you found that useful, and it's given you some food for thought, some things to take back and just reflect upon. I do urge you, if you do get an opportunity to go and visit St Matthew's, please do. It's a wonderful, wonderful place to be. But thank you, Sonia. Thank you for sharing that with us today. Thank you, colleagues, for joining us. If you do have questions or comments, please do hang on. I've popped a link to the feedback form in the chat. Hopefully you'll have that email to you as well. But I will let you go if you do need to dash off, and we'll close the session formally there. But as I say, please do hang on if you've got any questions or comments. And just to say, our next session in the Thinking Forward series is coming up on the 22nd of June with Ian Gilbert. It'll be quite different, but hopefully sort of test your thinking and help you to sort of, think in a different way, I suppose, in terms of the future and what we've learned over the last sort of 15 months. So please do join us on the 22nd of June. But I will say goodbye there. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, colleagues, for joining us. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.